We didn't actually embrace it because of some, philosophical enlightenment of political leaders. We did it because South Australia is a really good spot to do it. It's actually quite sunny and windy here. So if you're obliged through some federal program or something, you're obliged to put in renewable energy, and you look around the country, you might as well put it in South Australia. So we ended up with a lot of investment here in South Australia. It was actually not driven by the state government, it was actually driven by federal policies, because they had targets for how much renewable energy you had to create, and so South Australia was the place to do it. And I can remember at the time, the Liberals in opposition were poo-pooing it. They were, this is not going to work, and once we get to 20% renewables, the grid will collapse, the grid will fall over, it cannot possibly work. And then you fast forward to now, and we have periods, albeit brief, where South Australia is powered 100% by renewable energy, and the sky doesn't fall in. People say, but we had that statewide blackout. Well, yes, but you look at the tornadoes that knocked down massive high-tension power lines, and that ultimately was why we had a statewide blackout. But what gives me some hope is that that was the position of the Liberals in opposition some time ago. They're now in government, and obviously industry is going ahead and they're investing in renewable energy. And the penny dropped for me when there was a report came out, and it said not only will South Australia get to 100% renewables very quickly, well, within a few years, in fact we've already reached it at some points, but we could get to 150%. And so then you've got these sort of hard-nosed economic rationalists in the Liberal Party scratching their heads thinking, geez, 150% renewable energy. And then they're thinking, you could sell the excess, or you could encourage heavy industry that needs lots of energy back into the state, or you could turn it into hydrogen and you could export that. And so all of a sudden the same people who were poo-pooing the idea that we would ever become a renewable energy powerhouse, all of a sudden rubbing their hands with glee, thinking of ways that we can actually profit from the excess renewable energy. So what that says to me is that it wasn't actually government policy that drove that, it was the market. Now I'm not a free marketeer, don't get me wrong. I think markets have no morality, no morality at all. Our job as a society, as a community, is to make markets do things we want. But the market basically said, why would you bother building fossil fuels when you make so much more money out of building renewable energy? And so the market has driven the wind farms and the solar farms. So that gives me some hope. And then the politicians sort of catch up because they see, it's happening anyway. Another example I'll give you is electric cars. Now, electric cars are a two-edged sword. I'm a big fan of electric cars, but I'm a bigger fan of public transport. And the problem is that electric cars still have the same impact on the environment, the same impact on our social fabric and on the way our cities work and operate. They still need freeways, and they still need bigger and wider roads and intersections that demolish state heritage buildings like Crossroad, Fullerton Road. Electric cars are just as much to blame as petrol cars for those things. But one thing they have in their favour, obviously, is no emissions. Zero emissions. And if you cast your mind back to the last federal election, we were told that the electric vehicle would destroy the weekend.
Yeah.
The weekend will be ruined. All you people with utes, you will not be able to drive your ute anymore. Well, now, not only have you got electric utes, you've got electric semi-trailers, for goodness sake. You've got 500,000 electric buses already in China, and they have been there for years. So electric vehicles, are coming. And yet, the number that was sold in Australia last year, it was a few thousand. They're less than 1% of the market. And then you've got to look at those radical Greenpeace people like Boris Johnson, who's going to ban petrol cars by 2030. I think 2030 they're going to ban the sale of diesel and electric cars. In Norway, they're going to ban the sale of petrol and electric cars in 2025. In 4 years' time, you will not be able to buy a new petrol or diesel car in Norway. So it says to me that it's helpful if governments have good policies that help make good things happen. But my point is, good things can happen even in spite of government policy, often because the economics makes them work. And we were talking before about my electric bike that I ride to and from Blackwood to Parliament. I did the sums. It cost me 18 cents for 2 round trips.
So on through.
9 cents 9 cents for a round trip, 4.5 cents it cost me in fuel each way to charge the battery on my electric bike. So yes, I do have hope, and I think that once politicians see where the economy and where the captains of industry are driving things, then they will realise that it's not impossible, and in fact it's a good idea.